Show. It's the Herbert Dennard Show.
Good day and welcome to the Herbert Dennard Show. We have with us the newly elected District Attorney, Anita Reynolds Howard. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Mr. Dennard.
How did you pull it off? How did you beat an incumbent? How did you do it?
From the very beginning, we kicked off our campaign at the terminal station, July the 27th of 2019, and we wanted to make sure that we had a campaign that was God ordained. It was driven with a message of change, and the people responded, and they responded in a great way with a wonderful mandate that it was time to change the face of justice here in the Macon Judicial Circuit.
Who was your big supporters in this race? I know you were relatively unknown in Macon. You didn't go to high school here, like a lot of people. I didn't go to high school here either. But I'd been here a while. Most people didn't know you, at least I didn't think they knew you. And in a little while, you was in churches, you was in meetings, and you was all around the city. What did you do? Who was your supporters?
I just reached out to, individuals. Some people I did know and had previous relationships with, like Dr. Mack. He's known me since I was a little girl. His wife and my mother taught school together, and his wife was also my teacher and one of my mentors. So I reached out to him, and he reached out to some of his friends. My husband, of course, is a native of Macon and a graduate of Central High School and coached at Macon Little League and, was in a bowling league. So my husband has been here, and he knows
Who's your husband?
Todd Howard.
Okay.
And so he knows a lot of individuals, and we were able to get the support of Senator Lucas and his wife, Commissioner Lucas. Todd and Senator Lucas, they had known each other for a number of years, and just so many people that either knew my husband or his mom, who worked at the hospital for years, or my dad, Willie Reynolds, who was elected official in Crawford County, but also just very active in Middle Georgia. And then also my mother, Annie Reynolds.
I think all of the ministers that I know supported you.
Yes, sir. If I just say, if I had to think about it, I believe so. They either supported me or they chose to just be neutral, because a lot of them, well, some of them, a small percentage of them, they just have, I guess, kind of policies for themselves that they don't endorse anyone publicly. So there were a few of those, but you're right. For the most part, we were blessed to have the support of the faith community.
How you won?
Yes, sir.
When do you take office?
January the 1st.
January the 1st.
Yeah. Probably more like January the 2nd, because the 1st typically is a holiday, but yes, sir.
How much does the position pay?
Well, right now it looks like it could be upwards in about $170 or a little bit more.
That's a nice piece of money.
It is. So there comes with that comes with a lot of responsibility, though, as well, and responsibility to make sure that our communities, are safe. That's the number one job, or should be, and will be my priority, is public safety. And it also comes with accountability to the public, and I believe that's what we were lacking. And that was, that was a point that we wanted to emphasize in our campaign, and I believe it resonated with people. We know that we have disparities in the criminal justice system, throughout this country. We cannot think that Bibb, Crawford, and Peach counties are exempt from that. And we said something that really resonated. We said that we cannot improve what we refuse to measure. Right? It's not enough to say, I'm being fair, when you're dealing with lives. What does the data look like? Since you've been in office, how have you made things fair for individuals, especially individuals who have been marginalized and disadvantaged in people from communities of color, people who have lower socioeconomic status. How have you made the system, fair for those individuals, and what do those numbers look like? So that's part of what we will do in my administration with the Accountability Council and the case flow analysis. Actually, start from day one to see where we are, where the goals that, where we need to progress from, and then present that data to the council and to the public at town halls.
So what is the duties and responsibilities of the district attorney?
For me, there is one priority, and that is public safety. And that is achieved in many different ways. Traditionally, that has been achieved by the prosecution of crimes, which that is needed. But I also believe that that is achieved through preventive measures. I believe that's achieved through restorative justice, which shows how crimes impact victims. I believe that crime causes harm, and that those affected should be a part of repairing that harm. So that goes, into your victims' rights and things of that nature. But it all, for me, will fall under the umbrella of public safety. So everything that I'll be doing, all of my initiatives, when I'm out in the public, even community engagement, is about public safety, because if people don't know you, they can't trust you, right? And so people in the community, they know what's going on before anybody in that courthouse is going to know what's going on. But if they don't trust you, and they're not going to trust you unless they know you, so they can tell you, this is what's going on, this is what we hear is about to happen, those kind of things. So even community engagement, it all goes back to public safety, as it should.
How many lawyers are part of the district attorney's office?
They have 23 slots, is my understanding, assistants, and there are 2 vacancies, I believe, the last time that I checked.
So most of the time you won't be prosecuting, you'll have some of your associates are prosecuting.
Right.
But you can't do it all.
We can't do it all. And a lot of what the district attorney does is just manage administration, managing the office, also, as I said, being engaged with the community. Now, I do like being in the courtroom. So you have 2 schools of thought. There's some DAs that don't ever try a case. But, right now, I don't believe that's the kind of district attorney that I'm going to be. I like being in the courtroom. Now, I won't have a caseload per se, but if there is a case that comes up, or, if there's a younger attorney that needs, someone who's experienced to, try the case with them, I would definitely be more than happy to step in and do that.
How does the grand jury interact with the district attorney?
So the grand jury is a body of citizens from that particular county. The grand jury is a collective conscience of the community. And I think that in cases that are not exactly clear, or in cases that there is heightened, public concern, such as what we see a lot in the news, unarmed, African Americans, especially, we've been seeing unarmed Black men being killed by officers. A lot of those cases are not clear cut, right? The evidence is not always available to the public. And so I believe in those cases where evidence is not, clear, or it has not been presented to the public, that those are so important, and the grand jury is essential into the process of transparency.
How is the grand jury made up? How do you pull them together? The same way you do a regular jury? Is something special about a grand jury?
Well, now, the grand jury is just made up of, there's criteria in the code that they're made up of, but the clerk typically, pulls that list. The district attorney's office really doesn't have much to do with the actual grand jury the list or how that's done or how that's pulled. Now, we will sometimes get the list in advance and make sure that, we don't have convicted felons on there, or we don't have, just making sure that you want to make sure that your grand jury and your trial juries, you want to make sure that those individuals are not going to be biased in any way. So, a lot of times we will look at that, but typically those lists are done by the clerk of court.
Okay, you have a grand jury in Macon, you have one in Crawford County?
Yes, sir.
One in Peach County?
Yes, sir.
It's not the same grand jury?
No, sir. No, sir. It's based on each county. A jury of your peers is, some, folks that live in the county that you live in and that kind of thing. Now, there have been occasions where, and they're rare, but there have been occasions where, say, a case will get a lot of media attention, and based on that, they feel like like, say, a crime occurred in Bibb County. There may be motions that have been filed for a change of venue, and sometimes in those, situations, then the venue is changed to another county. Sometimes the trial actually happens in the other county. Sometimes the trial actually happens it will still happen in Bibb County, but you would bring jurors in from another county, but then you would try to find a county that was comparable to Bibb when it came to certain demographics. So, but typically, for most of your cases, it's going to be juries from, the county that you reside in.
What is your vision as a district attorney? What are some of the things you hope to accomplish in the first 4 years?
I want to restore the community's confidence in a broken system. And I believe that you do that by promoting transparency and accountability. Because if the public, if you don't inform them of what you're doing, or, why you're doing what you're doing, then that adds to that mistrust. And so I want to be as transparent to the community so that there is greater accountability and we can restore that confidence.
Okay. I appreciate you stopping by. We're going to take a break and
Yes,
we'll
sir.
be right back.
Okay.
Sweet a prayer, sweet a prayer that calls me from a of care and beats me at my Father's throne. Make all my want and wishes known.
O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, shelters from the stormy blast, you get our eternal home. We come, Heavenly Father, early before thy throne. We come with a heart full of thanks to you for your loving arms that has been around us. We come thankful hearts. We come with obedient minds. We come, Heavenly Father, to thank you for your many blessings that thou hast stored upon us, even from the rocking of our cradle unto this present moment. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving us health and strength, enabling us to rise early this morning and get about our daily occupation. We thank thee for active of our limbs. We thank thee for the Holy Spirit that has been with us and guiding us along this life's way. We, Heavenly Father, we are children of our King, and you is our Father, and we're leaning and depending upon your word. Every day, Father, we can't help but thanking you for letting us see the early sunrise this morning. We thank you for health and strength. Yet we are beggars at your feet, asking that thou would heal our bodies of all these mean diseases. We ask thee, Heavenly Father, to give us strength to every day of our lives. We ask you, Heavenly Master, to look in the hospital, look on those who are suffering in pains, look on the bereaved families everywhere. Wherever they are today, lift their burdens, give them strength. Let them know that thou art thou God and a God of the nation. The nation needs you, the world needs you. We need you in every walk of life. Our thanks to you this day for this great opportunity that thou hast given unto us. We ask now, Father, that you would not leave us in a time like this. We ask that thou would look on us, lead us, hold us in the hollow of your own hand. When our way gets hard, we ask that thou would not leave us, but come on close to us. Help us to bear our burdens. Help us to lead thy people that they may be led in the right direction. When the storm of life is dashing around us, we ask thee to calm the storm and shine a light in every dark place that we might see. We are pilgrim travelers, feeling our way through a dark world. Sometime we're right and sometime we're wrong, but you're so loving, kind to us. When we are wrong, you wait on us until we get right. And when we are right, Heavenly Father, you will glorify us and bless us. Now, Heavenly Master, when this time and toiling, the days are over in this life, we ask that thou would meet us at the river, shape your word as a vessel. Let our souls step on board as passengers and cross us over into another world where we can live out the ages through eternity. This is our prayer, your servant's prayer. Amen.
Welcome back to the Herbert Dennard Show. We have Anita Reynolds Howard
Yes, sir.
as our guest, the newly elected district attorney for Bibb County, Crawford County, and Peach County. We was just talking about the grand jury and the responsibilities.
That's right.
You say the clerk of the Superior Court selected kind of go through the, I guess, the numbers or whatever.
Right. And then the district attorney, the district attorney's office, we will present cases to the grand jury. What's different about the grand jury from a regular, trial jury or traverse jury is the fact that we only evidence that we want the grand jury to hear is presented. They are closed proceedings. They are confidential. Nothing is being recorded. The only thing that is the only record that you have basically is the decision of the grand jury. So if they get indictments, and if they feel like there is probable cause to proceed against the particular defendant that is being charged, they will true bill the case. If they feel like there is not probable cause, then they will no bill the case. Now, the grand jury can also have questions. It's an investigative body. So the grand jury says, well, I don't believe you have enough evidence. Can you see if there's a video from this incident? Can you check Hardee's and see if there's a video, or check, whatever establishment? Then the grand jury, those are answers that we have to provide to the grand jury. But the thing about it is, it's only the witnesses that the district attorney's office presents, and only the evidence they present.
And then basically the grand jury indict or not indict.
Right, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If they don't indict, the case is dead?
No, sir. You can actually present the case again to a grand. If they no bill the case, you can actually present the case again. But you also, when you're in there, you can actually ask the grand jury questions. So when I go in, we've asked questions like, what are they ask me questions. They can ask the witness that we bring in questions, but we can also ask them questions like, what are some of the issues that you may have, or we can tell based off their questions what issues they may be having. And so typically before you present the case again, you will try to cure those issues or those deficiencies. But it's a very, very informative because there's not a lot of evidentiary rules and things of that nature. So you can tell them a lot. They can ask you questions, which is quite different than, a trial. And so we're able to get information as far as, how we may think a case may go at trial, or what we need to highlight at trial, or like I said, what deficiencies we may need to cure.
Tell us about Anita Reynolds Howard. Okay. Your background, your schooling, your work experience. What all the things that prepared you for this moment, this job?
Okay. Well, so I am a daughter of Middle Georgia. I graduated from County High School in Warner Robins. That's where I was born and raised. Went to college at Valdosta State, left Valdosta, and I got accepted into law school, got a scholarship at Oklahoma City University.
Got a scholarship?
I got a scholarship for law school. That's why I went to Oklahoma, yes, sir. And then I also was accepted into the governor's intern program under Governor Roy Barnes. And I was actually placed in Macon at the Office of the Child Advocate. The Office of the Child Advocate used to be here in Macon. So I was placed here as an intern. Then I went to law school my first year, came back to Middle Georgia, worked at a DA's office, and I've been at a DA's office ever since.
You work for which DA's office?
For the one that I'm currently working in now, Talladega Circuit, so Butts, Lamar, and Monroe counties. So after my first year of law school, I started interning there. I got accepted the next year into the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia's internship program, but I asked that they still place me back at that DA's office where I'm at now. So prosecution has always been a part of what I wanted to do, and the reason why is because I know that we have a broken system with a lot of disparities, and I believe that we have to change the system from within, and that's the only way to do it. Prosecutors have, I believe, more discretion than anyone in the criminal justice system. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, the judge has more influence or, more discretion. But you have to remember that, the judge's role is very important. But a judge only hears the cases that the prosecutors put in front of them. So when people are offered diversions or alternatives, or, if they're not charged as harshly, right? That's all done by the prosecutor, and that's why that role, that discretion, is so vital that is done equitably. And I don't believe that we have a system currently where that has been done equitably. But again, like we talked about before, we don't know because we've not seen those numbers. We know what's going on everywhere else. But what's going on right here? Where we live and, where we call home. And so that's why it's important to make sure that, we have that data to look at.
I understand that most cases do not go to trial.
That's exactly correct. Most cases do not go to trial. I've been a prosecutor for over 15 years. So the cases that go to trial typically fall in one or two categories. These are cases that maybe the evidence is just not clear cut, is not as strong. Maybe it has there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, not direct evidence. Or typically there are cases where there are severe penalties, right? So if you're charged with murder and your negotiated plea is to serve 30 years, most people, a lot of people are just going to take their chances and say, well, let me see what'll happen at trial. Because a lot of things happen at trial. A lot of things can go wrong at trial. Someone can say something they're not supposed to say, and there's a mistrial declared. See, that's the huge difference between, we're talking about those evidentiary rules at a jury trial versus the grand jury. Somebody says something they're not supposed to say at the grand jury, it's kind of, there's no record of that. But at a trial, if someone says something, then there could be a mistrial. And so that comes where as DAs, we have to make sure that our witnesses are prepped properly. And that happens in all cases because, I tried a case earlier this year where there was these two gentlemen, and they were accused of drug trafficking. Well, they actually confessed, but the way that the confession was obtained was illegal. And so we had to make sure, and it wasn't our officer, another agency had gotten involved, but our officer knew about the, confession. But we had to make sure that was not brought up, because if that was brought up, even though it happened, even though they said they did it, but it was improperly obtained, then a mistrial would have been declared. So those are things that you just really have to make sure your witnesses understand that just because it's true, it really doesn't mean they can say it. So trials, so that's kind of the difference. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What about plea bargaining? How much is plea bargaining goes on?
Lots. I would say probably, over 90% of the cases that I have been, directly in charge of have been resolved by a plea. And that's not uncommon, right? I also teach at Middle Georgia State University as a criminal justice adjunct professor. And one of the things that we talk about is that so many cases are resolved by a plea. If everybody asks for a trial, there's no way we would have the manpower, to facilitate that many number of trials. So you have to look at, your nonviolent offenders. You have to come up, be strategic about diversion programs and alternatives to sentencing and things of that nature. So yeah, plea bargains, that is a huge part of our job. But you have to be fair when you talk about plea bargains. I have attorneys who, even attorneys that supported me, and they said, one thing about, Anita, if she's not gonna do it, she's gonna tell you, well, I can't do this because of A, B, and C. And but you don't always say no. If it's something that's reasonable, then they know that, I will say yes. Or if it's something that I feel that, will not, that will be safe for the community, then I'll say yes. But if it's something that I feel won't, then, I have to just say no.
Let me tell you what I'm thinking about. And I don't know the name of it right now, but you might. In New York City, there was 4 or 5 young black men, teenagers. The district attorney got them and the police got them to plead guilty for something they did not do. And later on, through tests, DNA tests and everything, they found out
The exonerated vibe, I believe.
Right, they was exonerated. So what could a district attorney and the police do to make an innocent person plead guilty?
Oh, there's a history of that in our criminal justice system.
That's what I understand.
Because even if you look at the movie, my friend Karen Kendrick was in the movie Just Mercy. Even if you look at that movie, and there's so many stories, that have been told, because some individuals, they don't have the mental capacity to, number one, understand what's going on, and then people are denied just food, water, and then just the repetition, the stress of the interrogation, how long it takes, and people get confused, and sometimes people just say, well, fine, I did it, and so those are things. But that's where it takes, when I'm talking about changing the system from within, having prosecutors that will review those confessions to say, this is improper. That's what happened in that case that I tried. It wasn't anyone else that told me that confession was improper. When I first heard the confession, we were at a preliminary hearing, and I was asking questions, and then later on when I got out to my office, I took a closer look at it once I had been given everything, and I just said, we can't use this. I didn't need a defense attorney to file a motion to tell me we couldn't use it. I just looked at my officer and said, we can't use this. And that's what you have to have, prosecutors that are, it's not about winning cases as a district attorney. When district attorneys start quoting their conviction rates and that concerns me. It is about doing justice, and you cannot think that everybody that is charged is guilty. That would be a perfect system, and we know we don't have that. So that's why I think it's so important to do as we've done in the Macon Judicial Circuit, change the face of justice and get progressive prosecutors who will hold people accountable, but will make sure that there are equitable outcomes for all.
I just recently read a book. It's been out a long time. My daughter been encouraging me to read it, and I just read it recently. The New Jim Crow. It shows how a lot of times the district attorney is responsible for a number of innocent people in jail and a number of minorities in jail. And recently I watched something called 13th. It's on Netflix. It talks about the same thing, and it's just a surprisingly large group of people that end up going to jail and spending time in jail for things that they didn't do. And what you're saying is you're not that kind of district attorney.
No, absolutely not. In some DA's offices, this is not something that we talked about in our campaign, but some DA's office have what they call a conviction integrity unit. It's kind of new, trending throughout the United States. And so, that may be something that we look into. I'll talk with the Accountability Council, and we'll see if that's where we are with that, if that's something that we need to do on a large scale or just do it on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Yes, sir.
And I'll say again, you and your husband pulled it off.
We did. He is wonderful. I couldn't have done it without him. Like I said, it was God ordained, and we had, a message that we believe resonated with the people, and the people responded, and I'm grateful.
Thank you very much, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Tell me what can make me whole again, y'all. Oh, it's the blood of Jesus. It's all how precious it is. And if I do what it's slow, no other have, no I know. make you hard and slow. No other help have I known. Nothing but the blood, oh, it's the blood of Jesus. This is all my hope and peace, y'all. Oh, it's the blood of Jesus. This is all my righteousness, y'all. Oh, it's the blood of Jesus. It's all how precious it is. It's all how precious it is. Yeah. It'll make you white and snow. No other hand have I known. Nothing. Oh, it's the blood of Jesus. Oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's the blood of Jesus. Oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's the blood of
Good day and welcome back to the Herbert Dennard Show. I have my good friend with me, Alex C. Habersham, known to most of us as A.C. Habersham. How you doing?
I'm outstanding, sir. How are you?
Good. Look, you just put out Black Pages, and I was looking at it, and I see in here a lot of blacks in business. It's a lot of blacks you have in business here. Not as many as it should be, but you listed a lot of black people that's in business.
Yes, sir.
What I want to ask you about, when I returned to Macon in the 68, 67,
Yes, sir.
in Twiggs County there was 2 service stations.
Right.
In Bibb County it was 2 service stations, maybe more than that, 3.
Correct.
There were several. Today in both counties there are no black service stations. What happened to those black businesses and other black businesses?
Well, I hate to tell you that part of the problem was integration. You know, at one point, and black people did better economically when we had to do business with each other. There was a greater conscientiousness and there was more cohesion from an economic perspective in the African American community. We had to go to the black motel. You know, if there was a grocery store in our area, we had to go to the black doctor, the black lawyer. All of these individuals in business during that era that were black, they enjoyed the benefit of, I hate to tell you, segregation. So we were pretty much forced to do business with each other. And to be perfectly honest with you, we were more cohesive because, you know, it was incumbent upon us to help and support each other. So what happened is that when African Americans or black folks stopped doing business because we thought we were free, then these service stations and other businesses went out of business.
Right, well, but I believe you. But what I'm wondering is, we have 0 gas stations in Macon now. The population is probably 55, 65% black.
Correct.
And it seems like it would be advantageous for business people. We don't even have a wash place where you wash clothes.
Washateria.
Yeah, we don't have none of that. Not and far as banks is concerned, I've had several people try to open black banks, and they never open. Why is that?
Well, it's the same principle, Herbert. You know, in order for us to advance as a people, there has to be a conscientiousness. We have to realize the importance and the impact of the green dollar bill. You know, for example, you know, the black dollar might circulate in the African American community one day at the most. One day, 24 hours. So we get paid, it stays in our community maybe one day. But in other communities, I think it's the Jewish community, it stays in some of the Indian community, it probably stays longer than that, not to mention the majority community. So we spend our money and we're not conscientious, you know, and that's why I started publishing the Black Pages, because I wanted to emphasize to our people, and this is not, look, it was either Booker T. Washington or George Washington Carver said, you got to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Booker T. Washington.
Booker T. Washington, thank you, sir. So, you know, that's what we have to do, and that's what we used to do. But because of the lack of the same kind of conscientiousness, it takes a deliberate effort. I ask people to go to the Black Pages and try to find this listed by category. And maybe if you're looking for a doctor, if you're looking for a lawyer, if you're looking for somebody who who does a lot of things, if you're looking for somebody to fix your air conditioner, then I'm not saying blindly do it, but if we had a conscientiousness, when we do business with each other, it advances the entire community. Now, when I say entire community, I'm talking about black folks and white folks, because if these businesses do better, you know, we can hire more of our young people. Maybe we can reduce the amount of homicides in the community. We can contribute more. I know the preachers like this. We could give more to the churches, you know, New Pleasant Grove and other ones, you know. So to make a long story short, if we were more, I'm gonna blow you away. Now we got $3.5 billion in Central Georgia. I didn't say in Georgia. I didn't say in Alabama. I said $3.5 billion is what we spent after taxes in Central Georgia. Just imagine, through conscientiousness, we could start going to the Black Pages or other some resource and say, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do my part in trying to uplift my community by advancing it economically, by doing business whenever possible and feasible, and whenever you get quality service. So we're not talking about blind loyalty, but we're talking about conscientiousness to the point where when you can, you know, and you need your car fixed, you know, or you got body work that needs to be done, you know, you can go to either Stevens Automotive or some of the other mechanics, or you could go to Jim's Paint and Body Shop, you know, on Houston, you know, to fix your car. You know, you can find ways, you can spend at least 20 to 25%, and then, but we have to pledge to ourselves that we're going to make a difference.
Why do you think that black folks don't do that? Like the Chinese in Chinatown,
I know.
They do a lot of business with each other.
Yes, sir.
And then they hire more people within their own community. And the whole process works. But why isn't that exactly working in the black community?
The present effect of past slavery. You know, it goes back over 400 years. Over 400 years, where the black folk, you had the house Negro and the field Negro. You know, and that automatically created division, you know, with the slaves. And so they began to not like each other, and they began to hate each other. And I know you've heard the story of whether it's true or not about the Willie Lynch syndrome.
Yes.
Willie Lynch. You know, so for somehow, or for some reason, which I can't fully explain except for, you know, how we were pitted against each other during slavery, we still don't have the same. We still don't have the same kind of conscientiousness as it relates to helping each other. Now, I tell you another thing quickly, is that we did better during segregation. I remember when I was growing up in Tyndall Heights, you know, we were close-knit. And I got another reason for you I want to tell you. I hope I can get it in before the break.
I'm going to have to take a break.
Okay.
Got to take a break.
Go ahead.
We'll be right back. Okay.
All made to one. Wonder why it should be us all the day long. When there are others living about us, never molested, though in the wrong. Father alone know all about it. Father alone will understand why. All right. Cheer up, my brother, living the sunshine will understand it all by and by. Father alone will know about. Do I have a witness in here? About it. Father alone will understand why. Cheer up, my brother. Oh, living the sunshine will understand all by and by. Father alone will know all about it. Father alone, oh Lord, understand why. Cheer up, my brother. Oh, living the sunshine will understand. Oh, all by and by. One more time, say it from your spirit. Father alone will know. Yes, we will. Hallelujah. Father alone will understand why. Yes, we will. So cheer up, my brother. Oh, living.
Okay, and welcome back to the Herbert Dennard Show. I have with me as my guest, Alex C. Habersham, better known to most as AC Habersham. we was talking about black businesses. Have you heard the story of Black Wall Street?
I have.
Back at that time, one time, blacks had banks, they had everything in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why today don't we have that? We have some very, very intelligent, very smart. We have smarter people than we ever had before in the existence of us being in America.
More educated.
Very educated.
More money.
More money. So what do we have to do to get some of these businesses back and rocking and rolling?
Well, Black Wall Street existed because of the support that community, 1921 I believe it was.
Yes.
You know, that community, so they decided to get together and lift themselves up by their own bootstraps, to the extent that the majority of the community got so jealous, you know, until they burned it down.
Dropped the
Kill
airplanes,
people.
bombed it.
Huh?
Airplanes
They
dropped bombs
bombed
on
it, man.
Right.
They bombed it. So that just shows you the power of economic impact. You know, that wouldn't happen today. But, you know, anytime you spend $1, a lot of people don't understand this. You know, I've been in communities and somebody asked me, man, how all these folk get all these big houses? They in business. They in business and they make money. And oftentimes they make money off of our dollars. And I don't have a problem with it. What I'm trying to say is that there isn't a way to approach it and everybody wins. You know, because, you know, the better these African American businesses do, we pay more taxes, there's less crime, you know, there's less blight, everything based on the fact that we begin to circulate that money in our own community. May I say something?
Go ahead.
It's incumbent upon every person, you know, to be, look, man, you were part of it, more so than I was. I was in school and I did some of it. But folk died and marched and was locked up, you know, so we could have some semblance of freedom. Well, you know, but a lot of people have forgotten that. We got a responsibility to try to build our own community and to help each other. And the way to do it, that you don't have to tell anybody you're doing it, you can create the conscientiousness on your own part. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend 20%. You can get a Black Pages, you know, 478-464-0074. I won't go through all the locations, 590 DT Walkway, but you can get one of these, you know, and say, well, let's see, I need somebody in family health. I need dance. I got dance. My child I just pulled it at. You know, I want to teach my child how to dance. Well, whatever your needs are, then if we could get people to make a conscientious effort to circulate some of that money in our own community, you would see the whole community rise. Now, let me answer a question we talked about quickly. You said what happened? Well, you know, during segregation, everybody lived in Pleasant Hill. You know, it is Pleasant Hill with Dr. Martin and D.T. Walton, ain't that Pleasant Hill? Mm-hmm. You know, Miss Ware, all the teachers. And then
Albert
Billingsley, that's right.
Bill Randall.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead. Everybody lived in Pleasant Hill. Matter of fact, there was a gas station, I think right there by L.H. Williams School. I forget the name of that gas station. It was a very, very prominent family. But when you had all of this combination of resources in our community, then those people with the education and with the money served as a catalyst and as role models to improve the community. Well, you know, when we didn't have to live in Pleasant Hill, we moved out of Pleasant Hill and forgot about it. Well, you didn't march and you were not locked up to help our community, you know, advance and then forget about it. and feel like you don't have any. Well, you know, I'm living River North. Now I don't have to live in Pleasant Hill. I'm not going to Unionville. I'm not going to the fish dock and buy some fish. You know, I live out here in River North.
But don't you think part of it is, at one time we had to do business in the black neighborhood.
That's what I said.
Right, but when integration happened,
Right.
we could go to better places. When I said better, more, you could go in and sit down. If you're taking your family out to eat dinner, and I don't want this to sound critical, you don't want to go to Salim's or Fish Dock.
Well,
You like to go to Red Lobster.
hey, but you also go and get food to go. I'm not saying you got to do everything. You know, that's impossible. There are some businesses we talk about bank. You cannot put your money in a black bank in Macon, Georgia.
No, you
You
can't.
know, because there are some limits to what you can do. But guess what? There's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do. And if you want some fish, you know, maybe you don't want to sit, but if you, with COVID-19, people do a lot of to-go orders.
Oh yeah.
If you want some, what you
Right,
call,
look
what
here,
you call
I
that
agree.
sandwich,
Look here.
if you want some good fish,
You got Salim's, you got Fish Stocks, and you
Yeah.
got some other places.
Yeah.
They got good fish, but in some ways, would you say that African Americans should move up and open places like the Red Lobster?
absolutely. Absolutely, but what we have to do, it's hard to find a lot. We should have at least 200 millionaires based on $3.5 billion. We don't have 200.
What's the 3.5?
That's how much African Americans spend in Central Georgia, $3.5 billion. That's
And most of it go who? Where?
that goes to the other community. It stays in the African American
I
community
like to
less
say
than
the
a
other
day.
community.
Yeah. That's true.
I understand.
That's true.
But so what can we do now? Time is getting close, about to run out here on this show. What can you do now? What are you suggesting that we say we are going to make a special effort
That's
to
it.
do business with black people?
That's it. And if we had, you know, if we created the same, you know, black dollars matter. You know, you're talking about mattering. Black dollars matter. And then that's one way that everybody can do it because we got a resource and there are other resources. You know, this is not the only resource. I might think that this is the best one, which I think it is. But there are other ways to create that conscientiousness and convince yourself, convince your parishioners, convince your neighbors and your relatives. Say, hey, you know what we can do? We can put more money in our community.
Let me tell you, let me
Go
say
ahead.
something.
Go ahead.
Let me say something. You mentioned parishioners. And I don't know if this is negative or not, but today more black folks go to white churches than ever before.
Yeah.
But white folks don't go to black churches.
Absolutely.
Very few.
Absolutely.
See, there's not a reciprocalness.
Well, Herbert.
We are taking money right now.
I
A lot
know.
of us say,
I know.
I've heard somebody say this, you know, I don't want to go to the black church. They're hollering and doing all this stuff. I go to this other church. I go to this other place. You know, to do
Let me
it.
interrupt you.
Go
The
ahead.
black church is the reason why they can go to the white church. Because had it not been for the black church, we still wouldn't be free.
We forget.
If it hadn't
I'm
been for
saying
those churches,
to-
where would they go meet if not
Yeah,
in the black church?
Now, the thing that I don't like, we go, a lot of us go to their churches, time is running out, but they don't come to our churches.
Yeah.
And we got to do that. Appreciate you coming in. Appreciate the time. We have to do this again real soon.
Soon and very soon.
Soon
That's
and very
the
soon.
rule.
Andre Crouch. And we'll be back next week at the same time. Have a good day.